Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Shalabh Garg. I'm Senior Product Manager in NetIQ, taking care of identity governance and administration. So as part of identity governance and administration, I am responsible for Identity Manager product line as well as identity governance. I'm joined with Noreen, my colleague. I'll let Noreen introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. This is Noreen. I work with Shalabh and an amazing team at OpenText to deliver IG to you all. Welcome and hope to have a meaningful conversation today.
Okay, thanks, Noreen. So just to set the context for the session today, Noreen is going to talk through IG 4.0 features, as well as she is going to talk a bit more in detail about data policies in identity governance. IG 4.0 is the latest SaaS release for IG that has happened. And the same 4.0 features would roll over as part of IG 4.2 for off-cloud customers. So they are pretty interesting. So we would like to have a conversation around that. I would request everybody, if you have any questions or any comments, please put it in the Q&A during the presentation, and then I'll try to address them as much as possible during the session. And if there is something that is left out or something that is interesting, we would surely want to discuss about it at the end of the session. So with that, I'll hand it over to Noreen to get started with the session.
Thanks, Shalabh. So let's dive into the session for today. Welcome, everyone, again. Now let's check what is the reality. As we meet customers, what we have observed is around 25 to 30% of the accounts are either open accounts or inactive accounts. They have excessive privileges, which is a risk to the organizations, or they have incorrect attributes. And all this is difficult to maintain without having proper software or tool to get things in order. So what should be our goal? Our goal is to be right. And what defines right? We need to ensure that the right people, that be it our employees or our partners or our customers, have the right access, not more, not less, in the right way to the right resources, like applications, devices, and so on, with right governance. Which means businesses have to have responsibility and ownership. They need to carry out reviews. And also, a very important aspect is to be compliant and follow the laws of the land, to follow regulations. But what is most critical in this space is doing things at the right time. With the technology evolving, we need to address violations immediately. It cannot wait. And let's see how NetIQ IG appears as a differentiator in this space. How governance has initially been is point-in-time governance, which means we collect data over a period of time, we store it, and later when we find time, we act upon it or generate reviews. What this results in is that there may be a violation that exists in a system for quite some time, and things may need immediate attention. and may get unnoticed until the next scheduled campaign. What do? We do event-based governance. We identify events or violations and act upon them immediately. Are we saying that event-based governance is the only thing that's needed? No. Both point-in-time governance and event-based governance together make us real-time governance and continuous governance tool. So let's dive into what's new in IG 4.0. The activity statistics dashboard. What do we want to know in governance? We want to know what happened in identity governance and who is responsible for certain actions or things that happened in the system. In 4.0, we have introduced activity stream, where we try to know who did what and when. And if there are certain background processes like policies, etc., how did they react with the identities and what happened? And we get dashboards and reports with trending information with which we can understand a pattern over a period of time as to what has happened. It's basically a mirror to our governance system. This is how the reports and the trending dashboards will look like. Moving on, another very important enhancement is around SOD enhancements. We realize that every business role is unique in an organization, and the need to adhere to SOD may vary for each business role. Hence, we have provided a granular access at every business role level where we can decide if we want this particular business role to adhere to the SOD or not. So as we can see, if we turn it on, we would want the business role to adhere to the SOD policy, irrespective of the whatever is mentioned in the global policy, or we could turn it off. Another key feature is potential SOD approval step for business role auto grant. Say, for example, business role auto grants a permission or a role which may result in an SOD violation. Then we have introduced an approval step which gets directed to the SOD owner or the administrator, and the approval flow follows from there. We can now monitor the status of auto grant and auto revoke of business roles in the auto request section. And for approval policy, so we now allow the potential SOD violation check and approval step in access request to be configurable, which means we can have the potential SOD violation check in the beginning as an intermediate step or at the end, however the business chooses. Another important feature, like we all know, is identities can have multiple accounts in the backend system. We now have enhanced UI to display multiple accounts from a backend system, and we've enhanced the UI to support all the cases in IG to support the multiple accounts. For example, in the catalog, we can see how many accounts an identity has. We can know the permission associated with an account. For the access request, we can map exactly the permission with the account. And for approvals, alongside the recipient, we also mention the account so that we understand which account in the backend system is getting impacted. Moving on. The data policy enhancements. We now have the ability to configure multiple remediations for a single data policy. We support event-triggered data policies, and some of the events could be identity publication, application publication, account curation, permission curation, and so on. We now have enhanced auditing of data policy. So for backend processes like remediation and policy detection, we have added more auditing events. We have enhanced data policy detection monitoring, which means we now show what was done, how it was done, and what was found. Moving on the reporting side, we now have IDI dashboard. This is a rich UI reporting and dashboarding tool. It provides multiple reports and dashboards with trending information, and you can create custom reports of your own. So if reporting is one of your key use cases, you should definitely watch out for the IDI dashboard. This is how a sample report would look. Coming to branding and UI customization, as we know, earlier for string and UI customizations, we would need to go back to the file system and make CSS changes to include some of the important customizations that a business may need. We now support this in the UI out of the box. We can change the logo, name, color in the banner, and override certain labels. I would encourage you to watch out this and also suggest if there are any modifications that you might need for the customizations. We would try to include the important ones in the upcoming releases. So this is all about what's new in IG 4.0. Let's move on to an important aspect. Let's move on to the power of data policies. To understand data policies, we would like to first understand what do we aim at identity governance. We aim at meeting business needs through technology. It could be compliance, meeting regulations, carrying out audits. We try to maintain all the business needs through technology. We want to ensure that the right people have right access, not more, not less. We want to drive the organization to least privilege principle over time. And we would like to limit user interaction and promote governance processes driven by rules and policies that the business specifies. Data policy is one such important policy that helps us in achieving this. Let's have a closer look at data policy. Once we have data in our catalog, we perform governance and certification of that data. In the processing of gathering the data, we can create controls to evaluate data and react to the violations that are detected. What can we do through data policy? We can specify criteria for the data to be monitored. Once we have the data, we evaluate the data. And based on the results, we react to it or remediate it. Let's look at data policy in action. So let's look, what if we did not have data policy, and then move to see how data policy adds value. Good identity governance shouldn't have gaps. Periodic inspection can lead to potential abuse. So consider an organization which does access certification in regular intervals of time. Assume we have a rogue administrator who knows that at what intervals access certification is done. Right after an access certification is completed, Bob adds his access, and right before the next one, he removes his access. And the organization remains blind until the next review. And this happens in every cycle. Now we are leaving space for blind spot. How do we counter this? Adaptive governance. Identity governance goes beyond a point in time. It should be continuous. So what we do is continuous inspection and event-triggered micro-certifications. Say a baseline access certification is completed. Bob's access gets added. A micro-certification gets triggered by change event, reviewing Bob's access. Bob's access gets revoked. There is another person, Tom, whose access gets added. Another micro-certification gets triggered by change event reviewing Tom's access, and we find that Tom deserves this access. Tom's access gets approved and certified. And we could achieve this through data policy. And let's have a walkthrough of how we can achieve this in the IG UI. So basically, the data policy, we can specify the detection type, which means the result of the data policy, how do we want to flag it? Do we want to flag it as a violation, or we want to flag it as an event? In this case, where there was excess permission granted, we would want to flag it as a violation. Trigger detection by. So how often do we want this policy to be triggered? If it is a use case which we would want once in a while, then we would choose the manual option. If it is important and we would want to evaluate at regular intervals, we would schedule it. But in this case, we would trigger it by event. We can specify the condition, basically criteria, and what are the type of metrics we want to monitor. So that's the flexibility and the power of what data policy provides us. We could create the policy. Once we run the policy, we obtain the results. And what we can do is we can perform remediation. There are multiple types of remediation. And as we saw earlier, we could trigger more than one type of remediation. And what are the various types of remediation? We could trigger an email notification. We could trigger a change request in our help desk system. We could trigger a micro certification, or we could trigger a workflow. And all this could be possible with data policy. So now we would like to see your questions. And feel free to pose your questions.
Hey, Noreen. So there is one question from Jim. With UI branding, what is meant by labels? Which labels on which screens can be customized? Okay, so just to answer that, basically, Jim, this is available on certain screens. So you can change the name of the tabs or the labels to add either a more meaningful name or a localized name as you wish to be displayed in this UI. Right now, this is a very limited option. It is not available for all the screens, but I believe it is available for access request approval and even for business rules.
So yes, to add to that, it is available at identity governance and access request. And for reporting, we can change and adjust labels and the header text.
Okay. Another question from Jeffrey. So adaptive governance, micro-certification, does this only event on identity changes from a with changes collector, or does it also support other collectors if they are more regular than usual? So Jeffrey, this is not just limited to with changes collector. It is not limited to identity collector. So it can react to any changes that are happening in the identity catalog related to identities or accounts or any other permission or permission assignments. At this point in time, it is limited to these areas, but in future, we are looking at making data policies available for role changes and role assignment changes as well. Right now, it does not support role or role changes. Okay, I have another one from Magnus. Is it possible to trigger a micro-certification on end date for a permission assignment? Magnus, that is, I don't think so is possible because it does not trigger any event on the end date of a permission assignment. Though there is something that is coming up in the future releases of identity governance that the team is that we are working on is a time-based access request. So basically, where you can time-bound an access request assignment for an account with a start date and an end date, which makes sure that the permission assignment basically does end. Okay, but yeah, that's a good suggestion. We are looking at basically these kind of events as well, where it's not a change in the catalog, but more of a generic triggered event. Okay, I have another one from Jax. Okay, I may not have pronounced the name pretty well, but any scalability performance concerns to be aware of before we start to collect published data daily to support micro-certification use case? Surely, Jax, that is a good question. One thing to be aware of is, yes, the more data you collect, it is bound to basically have an impact on the size of the database, as well as the time that it takes in collection and publication. So those are two things that we should be aware of before we make that decision. One thing to add there to help is the change data collection. So one thing is on the change collection with for identities, as well as for application collection. There is enhancement that was made in as part of the 3.7 line, which allows you to do a full collection for application, but only publish the changes or the delta publication, which actually significantly brings down the time for the collection and publication cycle, as well as brings down the number of changes that you're doing in the database. Rather than adding a completely new row for each change, you're only making the changes written to the database. Okay. Please let me know if I have answered your query, or if you have any follow-up questions, please just let me know. I will try to address them as much as possible. I have another one from Jim. Any new review type in IG 4.0? Can we review permission relationship to another permissions, parent-child relationships? That's a good input, Jim. In fact, that is there in our backlog. It is not part of IG 4.0 right now, but we are looking into it. We understand that permission relationship is an important thing. As you mentioned, a parent-child relationship, or it may be other types of nesting of permissions, which would require certain reviews on top of them. But yeah, it is not part of IG 4.0 at this point in time. Okay, so Magnus, I think so clarifies. Right now, you can request access for a user to one or many permissions, but is it possible to request multiple users to one permission through the UI? I believe not. That is not the case. So you can't just choose one permission and say, I'll assign it to multiple users in one shot. The request flow starts from the identity and then selects the permission, and not the other way. But that's a good thing to have. So we would take a note of that, Magnus, for sure. Okay, so Jeffrey has asked, when will this be available in on-prem? So Jeffrey, the answer is yes. So we are rolling all IG 4.0 features as part of IG 4.2, which is our next off-cloud release or on-prem release. The timeline is second half of this year. I would put it somewhere in the last quarter of this year, calendar year. So we are working on 4.2 right now. Okay. Any possibility to auto-create IG roles based on IDM roles? Question from Jax. So Jax, that is one thing that we are looking at. No, I don't have a solution. We don't have a solution for this one right now. There is no direct mapping from IDM roles into IG. To auto-create, though, as you must be aware, so you can actually collect IDM roles into IG as permissions, and then do role mining on top of them, which can create candidate roles, candidate business roles from that data, and you can proceed to basically finalize them or not. but that is the closest way today. Reason being, yes, IDM roles are not always directly mapped to or directly able to map to business roles in IG. And a lot of IDM roles may basically be a grouping of permissions rather than an assignment. Okay, I have another one from Fabian. Business role changes, will it be possible to perform mass changes? Example, a new permission for various business roles. Okay, if I understand, Fabian, I think so this is pretty much in the lines of what Magnus basically was asking, where you can basically select a permission and then associate it with either multiple identities or multiple business roles. But yes, it is not this way right now. And the flow is that you go to the business role and then select the permissions that need to be part of that business role. So the flow is in that direction. But we understand what you are looking for, and we would surely put this in and try to see how we can address this thing. Okay. So this can be a permission or it can be a technical role, if I understand, because you may want to group multiple permissions together and then have it as part of multiple business roles, which may be more like a birthright access permissions. So I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Elizabeth, probably, if it is fine, we can open up. And you can, in fact, I think so, the candidates can unmute and speak up as well, I believe, right?
They can, yes. So if you have a question and just want to ask it, go ahead and take yourself off mute and go ahead and answer or ask your question. Okay, so we have another one from Jim. Any plans to replace the reporting engine Jasper? Pretty good point, Jim. So we are already evaluating that piece for our upcoming releases with the OpenText merger. There are certain directions that we have. There are certain products in reporting which are already available as part of OpenText, and we are looking at if they add value to the reporting pieces in identity governance as well as an identity manager, and trying to evaluate them. Please feel free if you have any comments or any questions, yeah, put it in the chat or speak up. We are all fine. Okay, I have another one from Hamilton. We can have a feature like our competitors with thumbs up and thumbs down as an AI recommendation, as a recommendation to approve or deny access review. Okay, I think so, Hamilton. This is something that I have discussed with you in past as well, and that is a good suggestion, to be honest. I think so. Yeah, we will take a look at that for sure. The AI recommendation engine is something that when you look at IDI. The reason of bringing in a new reporting and a dashboard engine is for that, because IDI has an analytics engine as well inbuilt, which can, the idea of IDI is that we will have a common reporting and dashboarding engine for all IAM platform services and not just IG. Today in SaaS, it is going to be integrated with IG in the first release. So we are just a few weeks away from IDI 1.0 release at this point in time. And so initially IG is going to push events to IDI, but over the time, we would have access events as well as identity management events into IDI, and we can have a much better analytics engine to do risk analysis as well as prediction and trending and all information. I believe, yeah, an integration in any form with ChatGPT would be really good. Whether it is even just ability to create a new role or assign a new or make a request, access request through ChatGPT. Okay, another one from Magnus. Is it possible to deep link to a specific permission request? Good for the for support and chatbot to be able to send a direct link to a permission request. Okay, so Magnus, this is something that we are working on to basically have a URL specifically to access request or to a permission, so that be able to do a request. At this point in time, it is not there, but this is already something that we are working on. This is specifically for our integration with other IAM services to be able to do an access request for a permission for an application from the dashboard itself. So your landing page itself, you can you have multiple applications, and you just click on an app mark, and if you don't have access, you can actually make an access request for that. Pretty good conversations. I'm happy that please keep it coming.
Some great suggestions too.
Okay, I have. Thanks, Hamilton. Okay, Magnus is asking any more collectors with change functionality. So Magnus, we are at this point in time, so as I said, right, for all applications, what we are looking in the direction is not from change collection perspective, but rather delta publication. So it will still do a full collection, but only publish the delta to the database or to the catalog. As well as on the identity side, we still are looking at adding more change collectors for identity sources. Nothing as part of IG 4.0, but that is something that is a work in progress, I would say. So the one that we are looking at right now is Azure AD, to be honest. Any plans to update fulfillment capabilities or enhance them to allow more business policy? I'm not sure, Jim, if I understood the question fully. As far as in the fulfillment capabilities, I'm not sure. One collector and fulfiller that we added as part of 3.7.2, 3.7.3 time was IDM entitlement collector and fulfiller, which has the capability to collect IDM entitlements directly from the IDM entitlement package definition from the application into IG, as well as if you collect it through the entitlement collector, it has the capability to automatically fulfill as well through the same driver channel. So it leverages the driver channel and the entitlement packages of drivers to be able to collect as well as fulfill the changes back to the application without having to go through Identity Manager. So that is one enhancement that we did on the fulfillment side. The other one we are looking at right now is workflows. But workflows are not there in the fulfillment at this point in time. They are currently integrated in data policies and access request. So at the part of access request fulfillment, you can trigger a workflow. So that is already there. Okay. From Tanya, could you please also consider Oracle Identity Domain as an IDP? Okay. Surely, Tanya, this we would add it. I would like to understand if this is something that is, yeah, I understand it is not an out-of-the-box connector for Identity Manager or Identity Governance. But if it can be brought into Identity Manager through Identity Manager, those identities probably can go to Identity Governance. A direct connectivity to Oracle Identity Domain surely is something that I'll put it on. Okay, Hamilton, compatibility with GCP, Alibaba, and OpenStack in the roadmap. So we want to get to that stage, Hamilton, though we are not there at this point in time, where we are cloud vendor agnostic. So we are looking at deployments through containers. That is the direction that all the NetIQ products are going in. So we have Identity Manager already available as containers, and which can be deployed on as containers on any host, on any cloud services. And similar is the direction that Access Manager products are taking, and the same with Identity Governance. It is there in the roadmap, though I don't have a timeline around that. Okay, question from Geoffrey. Any work on speeding up aggregation, something like parallel queries? Okay, if I understand from aggregation, Geoffrey, are you referring to collection and publication, or this is on the Identity Governance Insights? I'm a bit lost in there. Can you please clarify? Okay, collection. Sure, Geoffrey. So not at this point in time, though, what we are looking at is, so no, I wouldn't say there is any parallel collection kind of thing. The collectors do have the capability of doing collection with a query. So if there is something that helps, probably is dividing the data into multiple chunks is the direction that I would look into. So if we, because finally the bottleneck, I don't think so, is the collection. The bottleneck or the more intensive operation is the diff calculation and then doing the publication. But yeah, in a large data collection model, I can understand being a sequential takes its own time. There are some patterns that I have seen, Geoffrey, specifically like in case of Azure AD, people have done different collectors for users and different collectors for groups. Even in case of Identity Manager, I have had conversations with customers who have done one driver for users and another driver for groups to be brought in, so that they can keep them separate as well as run them parallelly. I don't see any more questions or anything, so I think so we are good, Elizabeth, here.
I think so as well. Thank you so much, Shalab and Noreen. This was a great session, and the questions that came through were great as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll be sure to reach out as soon as we have another user group meeting and event coming up. Thanks.